Rajni is a great friend of mine, so I have real pleasure in introducing her. She's a veteran speaker at STC. She always has a perspective and a point of view which is very, very interesting. And today she's going to talk a lot about, introducing the security into the DevOps lifecycle. And that's where she's talking about DevSecOps and the introduction to the containerized world. Without much ado and without taking the steam away from the topic, may I invite Rajni and Akshay, to lead the topic for the afternoon keynote number one. Rajni, over to you.
Pradeep, thank you so much for the kind introduction. Always a pleasure to be here at STC. I think it's 9 years to this date, 7 years in the physical conference and 2 years, the last 2 years virtually. So wonderful as always. Great to see you all. And I think, again, when we were in the running and, looking to see what is a topic we can take to the audience this year, we said DevSecOps, the increasing importance of DevSecOps in the world of containers. That's going to be a perfect topic aligning with the conference's theme on continuous testing at scale, and building the blueprint for the future of testing. And I think Tahir has done a beautiful premise setting for us, a precursor keynote in the morning, where he's talked at length about vulnerabilities in the crypto world and kind of decrypted the whole thing. So now let's take a step up to look at it in a larger perspective as to why DevSecOps is a very, very important factor, is a need of the hour in the world of containers. So, joining me, as Pradeep mentioned, is Akshay Agarwal, our head of security engineering practice from QA Infotech Qualitest Noida. And together, we are here to talk to you about to you all the way from what is DevSecOps to the whole 9 yards that it entails. So, even before I look at the agenda, right? As with any other topic, any other concept, firstly, let's look at the market potential. What is the market potential for DevSecOps? So, what was about $1.5 billion back in 2018 is estimated to grow up to $6 billion by 2023. That's a staggering growth, a CAGR of close to 30% year on year. And of course, this is spread geographically, globally across markets, with United States taking a significant piece of the pie. Now, anytime we see a market potential, there are two core factors that drive it, right? One, in terms of what is the reality, where do we stand as of today, which is contributing to that market potential, and what is the future ahead? What is the journey, which again adds up to this market potential? So that's exactly what we're going to start off with, saying DevSecOps, where do we stand as of today? And the future ahead is very, very visible, with all of the direction in the world of microservices, in the world of cloud first, artificial intelligence, containers. With all of these in play, I think the market potential ahead is absolutely visible. But before we even go into the direction of delving deeper, let's first understand where we stand as of today. So, showcasing reality, a few examples out here, right? Especially for us here in India, the last few weeks, we've been seeing all about this Shriki case making the headlines in terms of the Bitcoin, the cryptocurrency scam that has been happening, and every day how it is unfolding to really make us understand the depth and the magnitude of this entire case. Globally, as well, over the last couple of years, we've been seeing a bunch of examples, right from Kaseya to Colonial Pipeline to SolarWinds. So, whether it is ransomwares which were introduced through software updates, or large IT networks that were being brought down, or conglomerates like the US federal agency, if these large entities continue to be impacted, this is certainly a matter of concern, that especially as we engineer at scale, especially as we bring in more in terms of the delivery pipeline, more in terms of the delivery agility, we cannot afford to miss security in that piece. It has got to shift left to really enable DevSecOps. Adding on to this reality, again, I'm not just going based on these examples. Here is a survey conducted across 700 CISOs, Chief Information Security Officers, who who sit at the helm of security engineering, security processes, security compliance, anything to do with security of even large organizations. What do they have to say about where we stand in terms of security? Close to 90% of them say that a lot of these vulnerabilities are being introduced because of microservices and containers and way applications are being engineered, where not everything is written and created from scratch internally. A lot is also being leveraged from the external world. So there is a lot of vulnerabilities at stake out here that we cannot afford to ignore. Close to 70% of them express concern. They say that we are not confident about the security of what goes out of our doors. That's a significant number. Imagine they having sleepless nights every time a release happens, saying, hey, I am not confident about the security of what has gone out. About 30% of them say we understand the value of scans, but the thing is, we do not have time for scans. The delivery pipeline is so rigid in terms of timelines and the nimbleness that we need to take to the market that I do not have time for scans. And even if I take up scans, again, close to 80% of them are saying, I'm not confident of the outcomes of the scans. There is so much out there in terms of false positives. Jokes apart, today in the current world, we do not want to hear this term false positives, whether it is in the context of the pandemic or in the context of what we engineer. So here are numbers, straightforward proof that DevSecOps is really the need of the hour. We've got to shift left and really embrace it in the DevOps pipeline. So that brings me to the agenda. What do we have to cover for you all today between me and Akshay? We're first going to start off talking about we know the importance of DevSecOps, but if so, what is impeding the industry from accepting DevSecOps? If these are the challenges, is mitigation possible after all? And from then on, a level setting to even understand what is DevSecOps, how does it fit into the DevOps pipeline? What are some tools that are recommended at an industry level? We will look at some case studies and examples both from industry leaders as well as from our own experience. How can we build resilience in DevSecOps, especially in a cloud first world? Finally, we will break some myths. So, this is going to be the overall agenda. So, firstly, how do we rise to the challenge at hand? See, traditionally, as we all know, security as a non functional test area has mostly been sitting horizontal in most of the teams, where after all of the functional testing has been done, then comes security testing, then comes even an attention for security engineering. But now we are at a stage where we really have to take pieces of that and shift them left and really embrace them in the DevOps pipeline, which means the biggest challenge is that it is a huge cultural shift. Why is it a cultural shift? See, years back, we were at the situation where we had to, the industry had to accept that quality is a collective responsibility. I think we've come a long way in that journey. We all understand that. But today, it is important for the industry to accept that security is a collective responsibility. Everyone, it is not just your core security team, but the entire team, whether it is business, stakeholders, engineering teams, end users, security becomes everyone's collective responsibility. It has got to become habitual. It's got to become a part of an organization's DNA, really. So, anytime there is a huge culture shift, obviously there is resistance. And that resistance stems from the fact that I do not have the right awareness. I'm not sensitized. Does this mean my role is going to be trespassed into, or is it going to be more load on my plate? I'm not aware of all of this, so I'm scared in terms of acceptance. That is another huge challenge. In addition to these two, so it is not just the talk, you will have to walk the talk. DevSecOps does call for a lot of deep tools integration, deep processes integration that Akshay will walk us through, over the next few minutes. So that is something that organizations are often intimidated and overwhelmed by, which impedes acceptance. And finally, as I said, it is this confusion. Security has traditionally existed at the end. Shifting left, does that mean I'm doing away with the security team? So it is important to understand at this hour that we are not doing away with the security team, but we are actually moving specific pieces left into the DevOps pipeline to really enable that right balance between here are pieces that have shifted left, here are pieces that will continue horizontally, and together these will bring in the right synergies that you need in the world of DevSecOps. So now, having looked at the challenges, is it all, such a tough situation that mitigation is not possible? Mitigation is possible after all. I really like this picture, when I was able to stumble upon it. Because if you look at any facet independently, so if you look at security independently, it is going to be intimidating, overwhelming. It's going to be this large bottleneck, the large elephant out there, maybe even a white elephant. Whereas DevOps, over the years, I've built the required agility, nimbleness. So I'm this cute little flexible penguin out here. Why come thrust security on me and make it really tough? Having seen the need of the hour, the good news is with the right level of collaboration, if you look at all of those challenges, they can actually become the right opportunities where you create the awareness, focus on the tools and process integration, and determine the balance between shifting left and what remains horizontal. You will be able to bring the strength of the elephant with the nimbleness of the penguin, and DevSecOps will become a true reality. So at this point, I will invite Akshay to come walk us through in terms of what it entails in the entire pipeline. Over to you, Akshay, and I will come back at the end to give that again holistic view as we wrap up the presentation. Akshay, over to you.
Thank you, Rajni. Good afternoon, good morning, one and all. Now that Rajni has already addressed the elephant in the room, well, quite literally, why don't we guys go a few steps back and understand what makes up this elephant? Let's see how security is being increasingly introduced to the DevOps environment and what it actually takes to achieve that. DevSecOps, in its simplest form, is about introducing security earlier in the application development lifecycle, thus minimizing vulnerabilities and bringing security closer to IT and business objectives. But is it really that simple? Some fear that bringing the security team earlier in the SDLC may disrupt the very pace that DevOps stands for. And this misconception rallies on the narrative that DevSecOps is about bringing a whole new team to take care of the security side of the things. Well, let me tell you, it's far from being true. The precursor for organizations to bridge the gap that usually exists between development and security team is automation and cultural change to the point where many of the security processes and tasks can now be automated and handled by the development team itself. Good developers care about the quality of their creation, and security is an aspect of quality. They are, by definition, the specialists for the development pipeline and should be the ones to integrate security testing automation in the development cycle. Automated continuous testing helps identify problems before they become real issues. Come to look at it, DevOps culture brought a lot of innovation to software development. However, security was often not able to keep up with the new speed at which code was being produced and released. DevSecOps is the attempt to correct that and fully integrate security testing into the continuous integration and continuous delivery pipelines. But at the same time, build up the knowledge and skills needed in the development team so that the results of the testing and the fixing can be done internally. Security paired in the process is the way forward. Now, I can understand why some people may fear the adoption of DevSecOps because of some prevalent myths around this practice, which of course I will shoot down later in the presentation. But for now, just understand that DevSecOps is not a security trend in and of itself, rather an extension of the ongoing DevOps trend. Even as IT organizations began embracing agile development practices over the last decade, many still continue to approach security issues in the same incremental way, the siloed way they had with the waterfall model. Yet, with its heavy reliance on legacy processes and manual controls, security remained a challenge. In many DevOps pipelines, security is still treated as a bolt on rather than a design feature. For example, penetration testing, which sits on the very right of the DevOps pipeline, if at all it has any place. This can create pipeline bottlenecks, in part because few developers and system operators have cyber expertise, and even fewer cyber specialists possess a deep understanding of development and operations. And as a result, DevOps teams and cyber specialists continue to work separately within the pipeline, often slowing progress. Unless these groups work as a unified team to bake security into products throughout the development and operation cycle, their companies may never realize DevOps' full potential, find cyber vulnerabilities early in the application development cycle, and reduce the need for rework just before or after deployment. Now, coming to the heart of the matter, how do you actually inject security into your DevOps pipeline? Well, what you're looking at right now is a typical Jenkins pipeline, or is it not? Well, some of you must be wondering, it's actually quite not the same that you may have in your organization. Well, you're right in thinking so. It's not quite the DevOps pipeline. It is actually the DevSecOps pipeline where you have security elements at each and every stage, right from the developer trying to write secure code to the pre-build and post-build activities to the deployment stage, followed by the data moving to the vulnerability management phase. You can have pre-commit hooks and ID plugins at the very start of the process, which would help you identify those basic security bugs and avoid accidental Git commits involving sensitive information leaks such as the access keys, your SSH keys, username, password. IDE plugins, for instance, can provide quick, actionable, intelligent pointer to developers and help you spot easy bugs. The idea here is not to discover all bugs, but rather help the developers write secure code. And once you're through the build stage, you can then perform SAS, static application security testing, which is for your easy wins, such as your injections, your XSS, typically low-hanging fruits. And now I can understand that SaaS tools report way too many false positives. So you have to train them. You need to build in the right context in these tools. You have to optimize the tools with at least a couple of iterations before you actually go on and try another tool. You can also perform software composition analysis, which helps to identify vulnerable, outdated third-party libraries. You can then, once your application is built and deployed, you can then perform test once your application is moved to staging for QA. And once you're through the production setup phase, you can go for infrastructure scans, compliance scans using security in infrastructure as code and compliance as code. As containers are gaining popularity, they become an object of interest for malware producers and developers. Therefore, you need to scan your Docker images that you download from public repositories, and tools like Claire will highlight any such potential vulnerabilities. Compliance as code, on the other hand, will turn your compliance rules and policy requirements into your automated tests. And the list of the tasks, the security tasks that you can integrate into your SDLC just doesn't end here. You can have your web application firewalls, vulnerability management, monitoring tools, chaos engineering. DevSecOps is really heavy on automation, which in turn means it is heavily reliant on tools, making your entire vulnerability management process rather convenient and effective. You must see on your screens a bunch of tools. So this slide is not really an endorsement for any of these tools. There's a plethora of open source and commercial tools out there. So you may want to pick and choose the ones that would fit in the best in your environment. And these are the ones that typically we work with, but there are many. Now, some of you may ponder, is it even worth doing? Why don't we look at some of the early adopters of DevSecOps? The three very different companies who benefited from taking DevSecOps approach to their internal development process. First up in this list is Verizon. Well, Verizon's IT AppSec team needed a way to facilitate secure DevOps practices as they were moving to cloud. They also wanted to drive a culture change within the company. So they adopted a DevSecOps approach. So Verizon created a developers dashboard program to help them relieve of that problem. It was a centralized real-time record of how vulnerabilities are introduced into application within Verizon's businesses, giving the developer immediate feedback on an ongoing basis and empowering them to improve their skills. Microsoft, on the other hand, their approach was rather simple, and it was based on good, consistent training and communication. Microsoft firmly believes that a lack of understanding and poor communication can doom the relationship between security and development teams. They believe in cross sharing for they think the two groups need to share knowledge and they need to feel empowered to help each other achieving shared goals. And lastly, how can we forget the massive uptake of Pokemon Go app in 2016? The upwards of 800 million downloads. Many of them by children, of course, which had their parents worried for their children's personal data. Now, what this meant for Pokemon Go was to create a security culture for the entire organization, including the development team. And it's not just these giants who have tasted success with DevSecOps. We have some of our own success stories to share. From healthcare to finance, we have proven expertise in implementing DevSecOps as a service across business domains. The problem statement from each of the customers that we often come across is pretty same. It's quite similar in that sense. They want consistency in the cybersecurity processes, they lack robust cybersecurity team, and they have major reliance on pen testing. And the way we work with our clients is to help them build a strong cybersecurity testing plan that would accommodate cybersecurity test code automation, code inspection, and manual execution of the security test cases. Identify and correct security flaws, compliance gaps, and risk with shift left approach and integrated DevSecOps tool. The result? A reusable, reliable security framework that can flex to customers' changing demands and is actually scalable. Now that we understand that DevSecOps is worth doing, right? Now, how do you actually build resilience in the cloud first environment with DevSecOps? Over the years, the occurrence of high profile system outages has brought to light how crucial system resilience is. A prime example is the web based storage error of Amazon Web Services in 2017. Such incidents have impacted millions of cloud service users in the world. So the first thing that you would see as one of the suggested practices is built-in redundancy in a code. Enterprise now adds several layers in architecting resilient IT infrastructures to ensure business continuity. Besides, the right time to add resilience is also when launching a new portal, service, or application. So why not tackle the resilience issues from the coding phase itself? When developing software, make room for built-in redundancy. Netflix uses this approach. And in the case of a cloud provider failure, its secure design gets activated. You can use infrastructure as a code, security as a code. Because of the lack of visibility into some aspects of operation security, CIOs are often found in a position to hope that security administrators have performed their jobs correctly. Security as a code may offer a more effective approach. New techniques in containerization and public cloud infrastructure make it make it possible to audit security and compliance in operations reliably and consistently with even less effort. Start treating your security issues as quality issues, because if they're not prevented, they could be at least detected early and fixed as soon as possible. Early detection would mean early and continuous testing and validation. That means security tools must be given to the developers, and those must become your developers too. Early detection of security issues means analyzing the code for issues from the moment it is written to after it is deployed. And another thing that you could do to add resilience in is the review of systems performance in real time. You must set up a well-rounded and integrated agile teams that can work across disciplines. It is crucial that the staff learns how to address resilience issues before the things turn ugly. So regardless of what the product or service is, customer facing, be it customer facing or internally shared, the team should prioritize resilience. Now, I know that it's a little too soon to be even talking about the future of DevSecOps, given that it is yet to be adopted at scale. However, as the tech industry continues to gather lessons learned from the SolarWinds and now Codecov breaches, the SolarWind breach was also touched upon by Rajni. It is safe to say that artificial intelligence and machine learning are going to play a role in the future of DevSecOps. From being a single cell operations to a cross-functional Marvel DevOps to a more advanced but a little paranoid but also more nuanced DevSecOps, development practices have really evolved over the years. And with the advancement of artificial intelligence and machine learning, our entire perspective on the development and utilization of technology is starting to change to a point where we are gradually moving towards what industry calls it no-ops cycle. With increasing automation, machine learning systems can process large amounts of data and make reliable predictions or even provide extremely accurate analysis. AI can make use of such data and predictions to determine what to do next and create a truly intelligent machine that can function independently of human intervention. Trendy tech evolutions such as Kubernetes and AI/ML will eventually create an alternate work cycle wherein human interaction is minimum to none. Hence, while in the short term it may appear to be an influencer of DevOps adoption, AI and ML will ultimately turn into a threat to this work cycle and establish no ops management in tech companies all across the globe. But the good news is that the effects that they're projected to have on the adoption of DevOps and DevSecOps aren't as impactful in today's time. And why not cross that bridge when it comes, if it comes ever? So now with this, we have pretty much come to the last segment where I will shoot down some of the myths as I promised. And talking about new trends and not touching on myths surrounding them would be our job half done. Any IT practice today is incomplete without the myths that may act as deterrents hindering its adoption. And DevSecOps is not so lucky in that department either. So first up in the list is organizations lose control when they move to DevSecOps. Well, a move to DevSecOps may seem like a loss of control to project managers, developers, QA, and security teams who are used to working on traditional development, who are used to working on development projects following those traditional waterfall software development methodologies. So, busting down this myth actually requires a multifaceted approach. It can include your internal training for your technology and business teams to begin with, to actually quell this misconception for your entire team. The second in this list is that you can buy DevSecOps. Marketing departments, PR agencies, and vendors are all trying to ride the DevSecOps trend to, of course, increase their sales. Now, the message that you can buy DevSecOps from a vendor, after all, is just a tool or suite of tools, is a myth that DevSecOps has inherited from DevOps. Part of any DevSecOps pilot should be education and the outreach to stakeholders and influencers inside and outside your IT groups. The third myth in this list is that DevSecOps is about speed and speed only. Well, improving software velocity is but one aspect, but automation helps speed deployments while improving software quality and compliance. Then we have, and this gets me every time, that DevSecOps requires an elite senior level development team. Well, there is a wrong sentiment out there that DevSecOps is only for an elite team of senior level developers working as a tight group with specialized training, certifications, and tools. You can simply shoot down this myth by keeping open lines of communications between your DevSecOps delivery teams and the rest of your organization. And if COVID has taught us anything, that it is how conveniently, how effectively we can work in a remote environment. DevSecOps isn't for remote teams is another myth. And a program manager once told me that remote teams could not do DevOps well. Well, COVID-19 has actually proven him wrong. Enough said, the same myth follows around DevSecOps as well. So if you have a team that's finding success with DevSecOps during the pandemic, you still need to capture and communicate the success stories and the lessons learned from working on DevSecOps as a remote team. At some point, our organizations will return to everyday life back in the office. So these anecdotes of DevSecOps success during COVID-19 will not be enough to convince those critics. Take those extra steps to capture data, metrics, and positive feedback from your internal and external customers. And the last myth, which I, being a penetration tester myself, would like to tell you that it does not close doors on traditional pen testing. There, I said it. DevSecOps does not eliminate the need of expert penetration testing. Now, before I pass back the baton to Rajni to conclude this session, I'd just like to leave you with one message that perhaps you may want to take back to your organization. And that is, if both security and development teams have a what's best for the business mindset, then they are more likely to be in sync during the development and vulnerability testing processes. Security has to be everyone's responsibility, and security baked into the SDLC is the only way forward. Thank you. Over to you, Rajni.
Thanks, Akshay. Thank you so much. If I may request you to mute yourself, I think the audience has listened not just to your wonderful talk, but also the inevitable construction sound a little bit from behind. So, thank you so much, all of you. Akshay, thank you for giving us this good, solid 360-degree view into DevSecOps, at least as a starter. And if I were to take away that one quick keyword, right, besides your tools, technology, it's that mindset. Which brings me to this last takeaway slide, that it is a huge cultural shift that focuses on people, not just on processes and technology. So, if I were to sum it up as to what is an all encompassing view of DevSecOps, it is not just about the engineering. I need the right secure technology in place, which means the technology stack that I use, especially given that not everything is going to be developed internally, that has got to be very secure. My processes of how do I engineer products, that's got to be very secure. My people will have to accept, embrace this mindset change, create the right awareness for baking in security into the organization's culture. Because once I have a set of team members who understand security, the right secure stack and the right processes, security in terms of governance becomes an absolute reality. Again, I think this is a responsibility that we owe in the sense that, see, today DevSecOps is important. We talk about it not just from our own selves, what we engineer and the positioning of our organization. It's not just important even from the user base that we serve, within our scope, but it is very, very important today in the accelerated digital world, the cyber footprint that we are creating and leaving behind for the future generations. We have absolutely got to think about not just continuous development, continuous testing, continuous deployment and operations, but continuous security has to become a part of all of this. So that's all we had to say, as to why DevSecOps is the need of the hour and is an important piece as we create the blueprint for the future of testing. So thank you so much again for listening in. That's all we had today. And Pradeep, if there are any questions, we can take them on.
On stage. Yeah. Perfect. Thanks a lot for that talk, and I must compliment Akshay, that he has actually spoken really well. In the next Toastmasters session that happens on testing, Akshay, you are certainly invited, because it was very fluent and a very clear articulation of the proposition. And Rajni, really thank you for introducing him to the STC club. I think we have a new speaker on the block that we can actually start working with too. Okay, so fantastic. And having said that, there are certain questions, of course. I think the first question that is coming in from the audience is, how does the focus or priority of security aspects change and tested from left to right? Means while moving the software delivery stages from the dev stage to the ops to the testing stages. Can you share a view on this to understand what gets attention at what stage? That's a long question, but in simple words, what they're saying is if you're moving from left to right, what is the priority that they should accord to? How should they really focus on it? And what becomes critical at each stage of that movement?
Absolutely. I think I'll have Akshay answer this, given that he kind of elaborated a little bit on this in that pipeline slide. We have shifted right to left, but now left to right in the SDLC. So just talk to us a little bit about those points, Akshay. Unmute.
Right. So as I said during the presentation also, the security testing starts right from the developer trying to write the secure code. So in the pre-build, and this includes all your pre-build and the post-build activities to the deployment stage, followed by the data moving to your vulnerability management phase. So in the beginning, you can have pre-commit hooks and IDE plugins. And then once your application is built, you can perform static application security testing. You can automate your functional test cases along with your security test cases. So it could be a coupled testing. And as I said during the presentation also, this is for your easy wins, for typical code level bugs such as your injection attacks or even cross-site scripting for low hanging fruits. And you can then perform software composition analysis, commonly referred to as SCA. So you can perform checks to identify the vulnerabilities, because I mean, how often do we actually write code in today's time? We import code. We only write 20 to 30% of the entire code base. It's usually we are actually using third party libraries and components. We are heavily reliant on them. So in order to find out bugs that could affect your entire product, you gotta perform SCA. And once your application is built and deployed, you can then perform dynamic application security testing. You can also perform interactive application security testing, which somewhere sits in the middle of SAST and DEST. And then you also have security in infrastructure as code. So, you can perform infrastructure as a code. And I believe, I mean, if you already have DevOps, then you don't really need to write scripts to spin up a VM or, and open up a machine. You must already have that in place. Then you have compliance as code, wherein you can also automate your compliance related test cases. You can build in the policy requirements with those automated tests. And then you have then web application firewalls. Once your application is built and it's ready for production, it's also deployed. And then you can also perform vulnerability management. So it's a chain testing of vulnerability testing and vulnerability management, of course, with the heavy usage of all the tools that we also try to display in that slide.
And to add here, once you've done all of this heavy lifting, what the penetration testers have on their plate at the very end is actually fairly minimal. So your cost comes down, your time comes down, and it's no longer a bottleneck for you in the process.
And also, as I said, I mean, there's a bunch of commercial and open source tools. We usually work with open source tools. So, but that's not just the end road. You have a plethora of options out there, and not every environment is same. Even these cloud services, you have AWS, you have Google Cloud, you have Microsoft Azure, and even if it's an on-prem setup, right? Your pipeline, your DevOps pipeline would differ depending on where your infrastructure is hosted. So accordingly, you may wanna reach a logical conclusion when you're trying to explore these tools.
Perfect. That's a very good answer. And then I have one more question, which is primarily from my side. The question to you is when we talk about DevSecOps, right? And Rajni, I'm referring to the survey that you have conducted with the CISOs. Is the reason for security, for a long time, there has been a discussion around security. There has been an interest in the non-functional aspect of security being tested. There was penetration testing still done, but that was largely limited to mission critical applications, if I may say so. Okay, which kind of caused an effect on loss of money or loss of life. They never really made it a mainstream discussion, right? So what do you see is the reason why it's becoming mainstream right now? Is it because we got tired of functional testing and we said, let's find something else to sell the world, and hence security became important? Or, is there something that the CISOs told you about why security is critical today? Any point of view on that would be a great thought.
Absolutely. Thanks, Pradeep. And firstly, I do want to call out that CISO study is an industry available data. So it wasn't a study that we did, but it is a study that has been done by an analyst firm and available for everyone to access. See, I think that's a very good question, Pradeep. But I think what is happening is more than, I'm done and dusted on the functional side of things. Now let me focus on the NFT area. It is that fear. Every time we see that example of something going wrong with an organization, tomorrow I could be there. I have not done all of these. Tomorrow I'm going to be in that shoes, which is going to impact my, user base, my margins, my sales. Everything is going to be impacted on one hand. On the other hand, there could even be legal complications, as in millions of dollars that these impacted organizations have had to pay back to their end users in terms of penalties. So I'd rather invest on this upfront. And now I have more time and budget to invest as well, given that my core quality has really matured. I've automated so much in my core quality, I have shifted left. Developers are also able to own quality. With all of these, I have now more time and money and effort that I can expend on the non functional areas. So it's not just security, performance, accessibility. All of these non functional areas have gotten a lot more visibility and light, I think, in the last 4 or 5 years, owing to what we are seeing in terms of what's happening. And secondly, we are maturing, that we are able to do bigger and better things right now.
Okay. Can I also flip that question and say, is it because now we are doing things at such a rocket speed and at such a fast pace? The probability of an error creeping into the system is also kind of very highly probable. Like for example, if we didn't have DevOps and if we had a waterfall methodology, life would have been much more controlled. But then we wanted to do something very fast, and in the process of doing very fast, we have more mistakes. And I completely agree, but I think the vulnerability is becoming a very clear issue, because I can corroborate with one of the recent studies that I have studied across with the CMMC board, where the entire defense supply chain, I don't know if you're aware of this, but there is a new regulation with the Department of Defense, introducing a bill in the US where they are asking for 300,000 supply chain of the defense in the US, to have a certain level of cybersecurity standards. So they're moving it from a simple cyber hygiene to making a very structured approach to maintaining security standards. So I think there is we are in a world which is full of software, and that's the new opium that we need to get used to. So. And if you're going to consume that, then you might as well have the vaccine ready before it becomes a crisis, right? So
see, let's not forget, any time an advancement comes in, it is not just the positive, right? There is a flip side to it that we cannot afford to ignore. Accelerated digital transformation, great, but does bring in these other can of worms that we cannot afford to ignore.
Absolutely. No, and I that's a fantastic thing, and I have a very good cue from that to introduce the next speaker. So thanks a lot, Rajni, and thanks a lot, Akshay. It's been a wonderful session. We certainly will pull in more questions from the audience and send it across.